Copyright in these lectures is either owned by the ANU or a third party who has licensed the ANU to use it. Students may use the recording for personal study only. No lecture may be communicated online, copied or shared without the prior permission of the ANU.
Okay, next we're going to talk about the assignment. So here, since I do understand most of you have not started, maybe not even have a group meeting yet, so I'm here just give you some pointers, give you some directions, like where you may start and the general choices you have to make in the very initial stage of doing your assignment. So what is required is actually you are given a client case who are very close to the transition to retirement. And it's very often that at retirement, they're going to make substantial changes to their asset allocation. For example, a lot of retirees in Australia the whatever left in their mortgage, or they give a lump sum to their grandchildren to support their private school fees or university fees. And with the annuity, that will be probably their resource for their retirement. So that's for a lot of self-funded retirees will do. So your investment horizon is 10 plus years, so at least 10 years, which is long term, but it's not as long as 40 years for young people. In this case, actually, you won't have much room to impose your own assumptions, or in other words, you can run conditional modeling at your discretion. So you might assume like the expected returns are given in the assignment. That's no problem at all. And in the given expected returns, we assume on average, Australian equity, world equity are going to have the same level of expected return. So one potential way to have your own beliefs or conditional modeling is try to have different level of expected returns for Australian equity and world equity. And this is what's given. And the clients have their own very specific concerns. For instance, they do want to maximize their wealth, which is consistent with the objective in modern portfolio theory, but they have concerns of inflation. So that's pretty common concerns for retirees or for people who are transitioning to retirement. They worry about the purchasing power of their retirement savings, and especially at this low interest level environment, because the returns from the fixed income securities tend to be depressed for very long term. And we understand it's the belief by the Federal Reserve governors interest rate is going to be staying at relatively low level for extended time. And also they have concerns of the risks associated with short selling or borrowing. They don't like this kind of additional risk. That's pretty common concerns for older people who are at the very later stage of their life. So these are the concerns they have concentrated of their wealth in property. So you are supposed to address each of their concerns and propose an asset allocation which will give them the best chance to achieve their objectives given the constraints. That's what we want to achieve in the assignment. The required submission will include mainly two components. One will be the quantitative models. So it depends on how you're going to model your quantitative analysis. It can be in a big Excel file or in a few Excel files. And in addition to the quantitative analysis, and you are supposed to submit the final recommendation report. So the report is expected to be written in business report format. So the language, the style of your writing should be business or sort of formal. But at the same time, you have to be careful choosing your words. Try to avoid the complicated technical terms, like don't talk about arch model or Gauch model in the report, because you are trying to explain the investment decision, the recommendation to your client who have limited understanding of investment and risk, although they do have some basic understanding of investment risk and return. So these are some of the key requirements in the assignment, the submission. To start the whole task, you should have a meeting, a group meeting, and get to know each other. So some of you may have a background of economics, so you probably will be stronger explaining the fundamental drivers to your teammates. Someone might have very extensive knowledge of the financial market development and how they're going to be related to different asset classes. So people may contribute into the assignment in different ways. Some of you might be very good at writing, and it's ideal that you have the different talents within your team so that you're going to have a quite nice package of assignment, no matter it's quantitative analysis or task. You have a group meeting, get to know each other, and talk about your background and your preferred tasks within the assignment. And there must be a project manager. It proves to be an excellent way of achieving a better outcome in the assignment. You have to have someone to take responsibilities, or in other words, being the bad guy, to push all the team members when they are not completing their tasks within the time frame or deadline. Especially with the ladies within the class. Do not try to be the nice person. You're going to pay a steep price when we submit the assignment. You got to push. I know it's hard. If you find it extremely hard, let me know. I'll push the other members. It usually works. In a few occasions in the past, it didn't work. So in this kind of situation, I usually take that lazy, non-responding member to an individual group. So I know it's sort of quite harsh, but I'm okay with this kind of difficult things. So let me do the bad thing, and you might go ahead to work on your assignment. But first of all, you need to let me know the problem. If you just stress out by yourself, I'm not going to know anything. I cannot help at all. So if there are any problem within your group, let me know and just ask. That's really the start of solving the problem. Have a group meeting, get to know each other, and understand the different elements of the assignment. Then from the tasks I'm going to talk about, you might assign the mini tasks to different members. One thing I want to remind you there, doing the assignment is very, it's sort of intense, it's difficult, it's challenging, but it's precious training before you go to work in the finance industry. So if you're very good at writing the report, just don't ask everybody. Okay, don't bother me, give me your results in week 10, I'll write the report. It's not a wise move in this course. You're going to lose the precious chance of making mistakes, having problems. The groups, although not everyone is going to contribute to the final model. One person is going to be the main model builder, but everyone has to have the chance to do some work on the modeling. Otherwise, you are losing this precious learning opportunity. So next we move on to the tasks. The first one, the most important one, and actually the start of any asset allocation problem, is try to understand the investor's objectives and constraints. We'll talk about the tax problem later, but when you try to incorporate the different ideas into this, understand the tax position of your clients should be at the first stage. Understand the background, your clients, any implicit exposure to any background assets, human capital, these kind of factors are important in the first stage. And the second stage, you're going to decide a general approach. So how can I generate these portfolio measures? How can I generate some portfolio measures that I can play a little bit and try to decide which asset allocation is best for my client? So the approach, you may refer to our discussion in week 3 to 5. So from week 3 to 5, we talk about the approaches of generating asset allocation, the weights, a few methods, and some of them are more appropriate for your client. Some of these approaches are not appropriate, not applicable at all. So you got to decide, am I going to run a quantitative approach first or qualitative approach, or the hybrid two-stage approach, or in addition to that, which approach or model I'm going to employ to complement my first model of analysis. When you decide the appropriate approach, then you may start looking at your choices of data. So we talk about the choice of sample period, data interval, especially investment horizon effects in week 4. So if you have any doubts about these choices, go to have a For the particular client, there's long-term investment horizon of 10 years, and they are very clear. We are a long-term investor. We want our portfolio performance to be evaluated every 3 years. So at least you should understand you're going to generate portfolio measures on a 3-year rolling basis. Remember, we highlighted the horizon effects a few times in the lecture, and you had extensive discussion of horizon effects in the tutorial. So evaluating the portfolio performance over 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years are going to generate quite different portfolio measures, especially risk measures. So you have to be particular in this assignment. All portfolio measures have to be generated from 3-year rolling results. With the estimation of portfolio measures, you might employ hypothetical analysis like the data-based. You define a sample period, adjust the historical returns towards the expected returns, and the hypothetical analysis can be based on what we have in the mean variance optimization process, just given the sequence of the adjusted historical returns. You study the 3-year rolling returns of your portfolio and estimate the average performance of the portfolio, and also calculate the risk measures. Another data-based or non-parametric method is by bootstrap. So given the outcome of all the past portfolio returns or even different asset class returns, I'm going to do random drawing from this. So any of the historical outcome is going to be a random outcome in the future. So you do the bootstrap and then calculate the portfolio performance over a 3-year period and calculate the return and other risk measures and see. With either methods, you have to examine the portfolio outcome. You're going to see if all of the objectives, constraints of the clients can be satisfied. If not, go back and change your asset allocation. So doing some, in the initial analysis, fine-tuning your portfolio by changing marginally the asset allocation manually. And then you're going to generate a new set of portfolio outcome expected return and all of the risk measures, and see if you can improve the chance that the clients can achieve all of their objectives and the constraints. So it's not a one-shot game. So, but you run the mean variance optimization, and that's it. If you are lucky, you have all of the constraints, objectives satisfied, but that's still not the end of it. You still need to have a look, can I improve the outcome marginally? Just go play with it. I would like you to remind you that, okay, given the same level of expected return, the same assignment data, if several teams happen to choose the same sample period, for example, starting from 1993, and it's very likely you're going to generate the same set of asset allocation. Is that the case in reality? Given the same expected return, we have the same asset allocation? No, it's never the case, because the outcome from the mathematical process is just the output from a model. You got to put your own judgment in there. So whenever you have finished the initial phase of your modeling, you have to consider if this can be improved further, or if there are any implementation issues. For instance, currently the clients have 60% in property, and after you run your quantitative models and you have an asset allocation of 10% in property, what do you do? How are you going to advise your client? Sell most of the properties and put the money into other asset classes? What are the consequences of doing so? How much tax they're going to pay? Are they willing to pay this tax? Are they okay with the illiquidity risk with 60% of property in the portfolio? So all of these considerations have to be synthesized together in your final asset allocation decision. There, and you try to fine-tune your asset allocation, see if there's any chance that you can improve the chance for your clients to achieve their objectives, given the constraints. And then finally, that's only one method. You're going to run the analysis using a different method. So running the same model, for instance, mean variance optimization over two data intervals, is not considered two methods. You have to try something else. For example, you might choose at least one quantitative model. First one, your choice can be mean variance optimization, and the second choice of modeling can be fundamental risk approach, which is largely qualitative, but it complements any quantitative analysis. It might improve your asset allocation marginally, especially you're going to consider some risks that cannot be really modeled or characterized by your quantitative model. For example, illiquidity risk or particular concentrated risk in a particular market. And your second choice of analysis method can be quantitative as well. So you might run the hypothetical analysis of the portfolio in the first model and run the bootstrap in the second method. They are considered as two methods. Remember this, we never use the output from the models as investment decisions. Your personal judgment, your beliefs will actually differentiate you from your competitors in the market. So it's going to decide, you're going to be paid $5,000 for that financial advice. So with the comprehensive financial advice, like the assignment, it's worth $5,000. Any additional work? If you decide to run the third analysis method, you're very welcome to do so. Given that if it provides marginal or complementary insights for the first two analysis methods, you're going to have additional marks. For the asset classes, today we talk about all of the readings are already on water, and you might start reading now, probably during the teaching break. Especially if you're interested in any particular asset class, just read a few articles from that folder quickly. That might help you to build up some knowledge if you have no idea what these investments are. And the last task is to write up your report. We'll talk more about the requirements or the strategies or tools you may use in writing up the report in about week 9. Still, writing up the report in this course is different from other courses that you are writing for your manager, for your colleagues like other financial planners or investment consultants, and most importantly, you are writing for your client. So whenever you write something, put yourself into the shoes of your clients. Do I make myself understood? If I'm now the client, I open up the first page of the report. Do I really understand what the recommendation is and the reasoning behind this recommendation? The more thinking you do while you're writing, the more you're going to extract, you'll learn from this assignment. During the teaching break, especially week 7 by week 8, I would like you to at least do some modeling work. Start discussing within your team of the sample period, the data interval selection of the choices of analysis approach. You might experience some difficulties, like, okay, some data is missing. Make sure you ask whenever you have anything not clear or unsure, and only ask the assignment-related questions, direct the assignment-related questions to me. Tutors are told not to answer any specific assignment-related questions, so that you're going to have consistent interpretation of the case from me. But if you would like to ask your tutors about how to calculate the returns, I'm sure they're going to will be very happy to help you. But if you want to ask, is this method appropriate? Can I do this? Can I do that? Do I have extra marks doing this? You probably want to come. Round of quantitative analysis, have the first round of asset allocation, no matter, it might be not the perfect one, it might be like something really skewed to 1 or 2 asset classes, but that's the process. You identify problems. So if there are any problems you sense, okay, something is wrong, you try to find out the problem and try to solve that problem yourself. In week 8 workshop, I'm going to talk about some common mistakes that you might make in modeling, especially in the initial stage of your modeling, calculating returns, implementation of the analysis. Another important build-up knowledge is the background knowledge. Since week 1, I have asked the class to read about the monetary policy, read the recent financial market development, get yourself familiarized with the vocabulary. I'm not quite sure the percentage of the class are doing that. Probably I'll do an assessment in week 7, and then I'm going to decide how much or how deep I'm going to guide you to do some specific investigation. For example, if given the client has a very concentrated wealth in property market, I'm considering giving you a suite of data or article for you to read so that you might start this kind of industry research, very much like industry research. You're given a very specific task and provide your opinion. So if we're just going to decide the asset allocation into the property market, direct property market, and now the clients hold 60% of their wealth in property, and how are you going to assess the expected returns of direct property market in the next decade? If you have no idea how the monetary policy works, you have no idea how the announcement of interest rate from Reserve Bank is going to be built into expectations and investment decisions, it's really hard for you to follow through after week 8 if I'm going to give you more advice on this. Market, the monetary policy, so that I can give you this guidance. It's really important build up, especially when you start working as a junior analyst, no matter in investment or security analysis or whatsoever, it's going to be a very rewarding experience. So if you have no idea how this is done, it's still not a big problem for your assignment. You probably still can get a credit as well. Any questions about the assignments? Raise your hand if you have had your first group meeting. Did you have the meeting already? There's one. 2 groups. Okay. So hopefully you'll start working together as soon as possible. Even just sit together and talk about the assignment, talk about the lecture is going to be very helpful. During the teaching break, we have a very nice tutor who is going to give you 3 hours consultation time during the second week of teaching break. You might go to see Jack for any tutorial-related questions or anything that you have with the after-lecture quiz questions. That's probably the only consultation we can offer during the teaching break before the mid-semester exam. Otherwise, if you have anything like especially the straightforward question about the lecture, the assignment, you can send me an email. Only the quite straightforward question, can I do this, can I do that, something like this. If it's a complicated conceptual question, I'll ask you to come to talk to me. I prefer talking in person. Writing an email is not an effective way of communication, especially in this course. Anything else you want to ask before we conclude this lecture, before the exam? So I'm very curious. Are you worried about the exam at all? Yes? Okay, let me do one poll again. Have you done any reading on this course so far? Any reading? Yes? Catch up. You have 2.5 weeks to go. Okay, thank you very much. That's it for today.
Do you have consultation on during the main break?
No,
No.
we don't do consultation during teaching.
So if we have some problem with our assignment, should we mail to you?
Yes, it's something that I can answer like in email. I'll reply. If I can't, I'll find the time and come.
Maybe we need a phone.
So, what time? Yeah, 10 minutes. Oh, what's going on? What the? Oh. Do you know why it's not? What's going on?
Maybe it's this mouse off or on.
Oh, just looking at video. Ah, I need PC. Okay. The screen is still different. Green, right? Projector on. Projector. How to exit launch proclaim and then select restore presentation. Launch proclaim. What is that? Oh, cool.